Ken, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Kent Lewis. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, and I'm a Pacific Northwesterner by trade, by birth, and I've been a marketer for my entire career, digital for most of that. And I've also been an entrepreneur for most of that, my career. And now I'm focusing on both employee engagement and retention and rebuilding a 118-year-old trade organization for marketing and creative services.
Incredible. And you've prepared a story for us today. Where does it begin?
Yes. So my story about sort of intuition or that combined with the unexplainables is I flew to Richmond, Virginia, or no, I'm sorry, Baltimore, Maryland to meet with a client. And this has got to be back in 1990, let's call it 1999-ish. And I'd met with the client in Virginia and I'd crossed the border to drive to the airport on a Sunday morning. I'd say it was maybe 9 a.m. and downtown Baltimore was completely empty at this point. It was kind of like Vanilla Sky, where I was driving down one of the main streets, tall buildings on either side, kind of old historic buildings, and it was green light all the way down. And I was the only car on the road. And I was on my third block where the light had turned green, and I'm just like, I maintained my speed. And I wasn't in a hurry to get to the airport, so I wasn't speeding by any means. But then my neck hair stood up all of a sudden. And as I approached the intersection and the light was fully green for me, I let off the gas and started to touch the brake. And right at that moment, because there were 4 tall buildings, I couldn't see any way, either left or right. No windows to see through, nothing, because they're old historic buildings. And a Toyota Land Cruiser blew through the red light and would have T-boned me, missed me by not even a car length. And because my foot was already on the brakes, and I hit the brakes, and I didn't even think to honk. By the time I looked over, they were gone. But it was one of the few times in my life that I could not explain that Spidey sense, as it were, that there was somebody telling me to watch out. There was no reason for me to slow down on my own, no logical, scientific reason. I was already basically going the speed limit, but I just anticipated this thing. I could not have known through just traditional channels why it happened. So I've learned since then to listen to my intuition.
So it was the hairs on your neck standing
Yes.
up, the feeling. Now,
Yeah.
I associate that feeling with the same feeling that you get when, like, you're getting chased by something in a dream. You know, like it appears to be, at least on paper, cortisol. Your body, right? There's a stress hormone that's being released inside of your body. And so the question becomes, why did your body produce a stress hormone prior to an event happening?
Right. And again, I'm more of a scientific person. I'm not heavily religious. You could say there's certainly more spirituality in me now than there was before that incident. They can't quite explain it. But the thing is, if I think about what was going on in my life, I was at peace in every way. I was looking forward to going home. I was seeing a city I'd never been in, just cruising through on the way to the airport. I wasn't late. There was no scientific reason for my body to do that I can think of. The only thing I can think of is somehow, some way, something told my body to prepare for something and be alert. And I could say maybe there's a half a dozen to a dozen times in my life where I've had that same sense, but nothing came to fruition where it was my cat or it was something else. It was something scraping the window. When you sense danger because you hear or just feel something. And thankfully, it was never anything serious, but this one was. And it was not at night when I was on high alert by myself kind of thing. It was cruising and enjoying the moment. And all of a sudden, pow, neck hair stands up. I go to alert. I take my foot off the gas and I literally put my foot over the brakes, and then it happened all within less than a second. It was unreal.
Have you ever been T-boned before? Have you ever been in an accident like that?
Funny you should ask. I have been T-boned. Well, we in high school, my buddy was driving his Honda Civic, and we T-boned a guy that ran a massive red light. Even we were seconds away from being the one T-boned. We happened to T-bone him, and I remember, I'll never forget. I didn't have the sixth sense at the time, but I did see him coming. I was like, Matt, look out! And we just boop. The front bumper goes flying. The car did its job. We were totally uninjured. I'll never forget, the guy got out and he's like, huh, accidents happen. And he had run a massive red light. I was like, if I was had less restraint and I was just a little bigger at the time, I would have beat the living crap out of that guy, because accidents happen. That was a purpose. It was not an accident.
Yeah, you knew.
Yeah. Yeah. But that was just more of like where that I have been in an accident, and I knew what it felt like for sure. But I have not, and I've got pretty good reflexes. And I race cars, casually, enthusiastically. So I have some training, but that was before most of my track training time on the track. And it was just a pure Spidey sense thing, just preparation.
So I've been in 3 situations where we hit a deer jumped over our car.
Ooh.
Literally out of an action movie, like it could have put its hand on the car and hit over the car. It was crazy. And then there was another time where my wife was like, stop, and I hit the brakes, and we didn't hit the deer, and a bunch of deer came by, right?
Yeah.
So now I am anticipating deer running across in front of my car
all the time. Mm-hmm.
There's a dark hill right before our house that we have to go down, and if you're not paying attention and you're just like coasting, you'll hit 50 miles per hour in a 35, right?
I
So
see.
Speed trap for sure. Never any police officers by. There's no light. And so now I flip on my brights every time that I go down there, and I go real slow. And so I'm aware of it because of that experience that happened to me. And I also am particularly sensitive to getting hit by deer, or I had one of them actually run into the car on the side, a little different scenario, but it rammed us. And so my body has rehearsed that. So I think for me, it's kind of like this evolutionary fear that we have around like loopy looking ropey things inside of the grass, right? Our ancestors have been developing this fear of snakes for 100,000 years probably. And so whenever you see something in the ground, you're immediately like, whoa, it spikes that system and causes you to go into fight or flight. And so you were chilling, but do you think that your subconscious was at all tuned into those past experiences that you had, or was it totally Spidey sense from your perspective?
So that's a really interesting point. I have had the same experience with you. I didn't mention because I did not anticipate. I was T-boned by a 10-point buck up in Bellingham, Washington, on my way to drive exotic cars. It was on a major street in Bellingham, and my car was like jolted. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and it was a 10-point buck that was dazed from hitting me, and then went the other way and got nailed by a car and broke its leg.
No.
And it turns out, I was like, why did he hit me? And there was a little tiny white poodle that had been chasing him down the street. He was spooked by a little poodle. I was not happy with that dog. And then another time I was driving into Bend, Oregon late at night. I was looking over it. Oh man, I made it in like 2.5 hours. That is so fast. And then there was a deer right in my headlight, front end crushed on my car. Did not even look back, just went right to the parking lot a mile away, parked, and all the fluids came out of my car. And I felt like there's no way that deer survived. But back to your point, I did not. There are times, having had some narrow misses with, I think I've only hit one. I hit a squirrel that may have survived, and I hit a pigeon getting off the freeway that did not survive, that I had to have my friend pull out of the radiator. And then he took a couple feathers to do fly ties because he's a mountain man. He's like, yeah, you're such a wuss. I was like, I'm not touching this pigeon. Anyway, none of those. I mean, the pigeon I saw coming, and he saw me, and he just boom. But with this one, where I'm in areas, like you said, you learn like this is deer country, this is cat or dog neighborhood. I didn't know that area, but I also was going uncharacteristically slow, like Sunday stroll. Plus, I was timing the lights as they turned green. So I still had half a block. It had been green for half a block, which is more than a second or more. So the guy had really run that red light. So there was no reason for me to think, why would somebody run a red light on a Sunday morning when there's, you know what I mean? And so I was not ready. There was no logical reason for me to be ready. It was not pre-programmed at all.
Yeah. Now, switching gears a little bit to your experience in business and in leading your family and everything. There's this sense, there's this flow that we can get into. There's this decision-making ability that people can build like a muscle. And I'm curious how you use your intuition as a tool in your daily decision making, all the way down to examples of how you make it stronger, of like how you listen to the nudge, how you pause, or how you recap on decisions that you've made to make your decision making better. How do you utilize and strengthen your intuition over the course of your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say I am a classic type A go-getter, shoot first, ask questions later. I move fast. I've been successful. I've failed, like many entrepreneurs, but my success has generally been I make a lot of decisions extremely quickly that are right 95% of the time. Whereas some of my friends ruminate and ruminate. My wife is a Gemini. She takes forever just ordering food off a menu. And I've already thought about it. I glance. We really balance each other. And she was my operations person. She ran the business for 5 years. And I think it was very helpful. As fast as I moved, having somebody be my yang to my yin really helped me make better decisions. And what I would say is what I honed over those years, first of all, I proved that generally my instinct was right. Even when others thought I was wrong, I generally proved them wrong, that I was indeed correct. However, the biggest lesson I've learned on intuition is you can think fast, and then you can think slow, that book. And what I found is when it's a big enough decision that people's lives are at stake, livelihood, whether it's financial or heavy emotional decision, I always sleep on it. And that balances out my fast thinking intuition. To me, a reason when I've programmed my mind to help, your brain does it naturally, clears its cache, it resettles things. Most of my critical thinking is done between 4 and 6 a.m., whether I like it or not. I've learned not to fight it. So that's one thing. But the second one is sleep on it. So all the big things, not only do I sleep on it, I also have learned to respect people that need more time. And I always say, why don't you sleep on this? You don't have to get back to me when it's a big decision or a big ask of them. Just sleep on it and let me know tomorrow. And I found that has created a positive experience 90% of the time versus 10% when I say I need to know right now because I'm in a hurry. And thinkers don't appreciate it. They don't like it. And it doesn't help me if they blurt out an answer just to appease me, rather than truly empowering them to make an important decision and give me their feedback. By sleeping on it, I've found that myself and others are far better off as a team, as a group, even if I'm not even the boss or make the final call, letting them sleep on it, letting me sleep on it. We generally become aligned in the morning. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is countering my rocket fast desire to get things done and make decisions and take actions quickly. Is a sleep on it rule seems to create that incremental gain to get me from 90% right, or right 90% of the time, to like 98% of the time if I just sleep on it.
Was there a decision that you didn't sleep on that
Oh
you
God,
had slept on?
there are most of them in my early career. I'd say in the first 10 or 15 years of running my agency, especially the first 10 years, I just look back and how cringy some of my decisions were. And this isn't intuition, this is just common sense. I'm an only child. I'm selfishly selfless, meaning as long as my shit's taken care of at home, I am very selfless with my time to help others. I've had this group, PDX Mindshare. I've helped people get jobs, help people find talent, and there's no revenue model to it. Seth Godin even wrote a little blog post about it. His point was, eventually good ideas do turn into a business model. You just need time. And this one's been 24 years and still no solid business model, but I help others, and that's what makes me feel good. But there are times when I remember my operations person, before my wife took over, she didn't like eating lunch. Frankly, I don't think she was that healthy. She would just want to be skinny at any cost, sort of thing. So I'd say, well, let's meet for lunch because that's the one time I have available. And so for a year, once a month, we'd meet where she wouldn't eat and I would. And I look back and I'm like, what an asshole. Why didn't we just have a regular meeting and not make her feel awkward? I don't think it really totally bothered her, but why would I do that when I didn't have to? I was obsessed with efficiency that I thought I could just double stack that meeting. And I think a couple months in, I was like, you never order anything. She's like, no, I don't eat lunch. I was like, oh, we could move the meeting. She's like, it's not a big deal. So I didn't move it. I should have just said, we're moving this meeting, because it's just dumb for me to eat in front of you. Just dumb. So that's something that I had months to sleep on and still didn't correct it. And I look back, I'm like, what an idiot. So there's a lot of those things where I went with the flow, and Portland is very passive aggressive. People generally don't tell you how they really feel. So there's a lot of things I did that nobody said anything to me about, that turns out that annoyed people. And I wish they would have told me, because my end was not catching it. Now I have more rigor, and I feel like I'm much more aware, and I these things. I'll give you one example. My intuition. I a lot have for 25 years, and I used to do it to build my business, right? Speaking about digital marketing and whatever. But now that I've sold my agency and I have a quasi non-compete, it's not a non-compete. I don't really have a public digital marketing or marketing consultancy website for a reason. But now I have 3 agencies that pay me to speak on their behalf instead of on my behalf, and they get the leads, they get the brand awareness, and I get a cut. It's all worked out, right? Sleeping on things has really been helpful for me. It doesn't mean it's foolproof, but like I said, the second part of sleeping on it is between 4 and 6 a.m. And I noticed this particularly after COVID, when I wasn't as worried about what time I was waking up or going to bed. I would just lean into letting my brain do its thing. The early morning processing was when I did all my best problem solving. And so it's less about intuition, more about going with my own intuition of letting my body do its thing and its own biorhythms. And that was extremely helpful. It's weird to get up at 4 a.m. and type some ideas to get them out of my head, but all my best stuff was happening before my wife would prefer it happened. We'll put it that way.
Kent, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at kentjlewis.com is my website as a thought leader, speaker, writer, etc. And then my day job, I'm an executive director at Next Northwest, which is nextnw.org, or a creative community for the Pacific Northwest. I'm just helping build more successful businesses through our creative chops. So that's kind of my day job now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.